welcome. You're watching NewsX Digital and my name is Gauri Kundalia. Now today we are talking about why India needs more members of parliament. Now in order to understand why we need them, we first need to understand that India is a democracy and a representative democracy. Now representative democracy essentially means that we elect people who then make decisions for us. For example, they make laws for us. Now our MPs, they make laws for us in the parliament, our MLAs make laws for us in their respective assemblies. Now, in order to understand representation, we need to understand how many of us does one MP represent. Now, over the years, this has changed in India. Let's talk about 1951 first. The population of India in 1951 was 361 million. How many MPs were there? There were 489 MPs at that time. Now, each MP back then represented 3.54 lakh voters. Now, what's the scenario now? Now, currently India's population is around 1.5 billion. How many MPs do we have? There's not been a much increase. There's just 543 MPs in the Lok Sabha. We're talking about Lok Sabha at the moment. Now, each MP, this means, represents 15 lakh voters. Now let's have a look at a global comparison, as in what happens around the world in other representative democracies. India, to sum it up, 1.5 billion population, 543 MPs with a ratio of 15 lakh:1 at the moment. Let's talk about UK. In the UK, it is a population of 68.6 million and number of MPs in the UK are 650. What is the ratio in the UK? It's 92,000:1. Let's talk about another country, USA. Population 332.4 million. Number of legislators in the US 435. The ratio is around 747,000:1. Let's compare it with another country, Japan, another representative democracy. Japan has a population of 125.6 million. Japan has 465 legislators and the ratio over there is around 215,000:1. Let's talk about another democracy, another member of the Quad, Australia. Population just 26.1 million, number of legislators 151. The ratio, the representation ratio, essentially meaning one legislator represents 57,000 people in Australia. India's ratio, which is around 15 lakh:1, where one of our MP represents 15 lakh people, is the highest in the world at the moment. Now, let's also understand how all of this is decided. Now, who decides which MP will be in which constituency and how will these constituencies be decided? We will have to understand a concept known as delimitation. What is delimitation? Let's try and understand first. Now, delimitation essentially is the act of fixing limits of a territorial constituency, and this is done to represent changes in population. Essentially, it means that the population of a country can grow or decline over a period of time and the constituencies have to be altered accordingly. Now, why is this done? This is done in order to ensure that equal representation is given to equal segments of population. It shouldn't be happening that a large population is getting one MP and a smaller population in another part of the country is getting another MP as well. It should be roughly proportional. It's also done to ensure fair division of geographical areas between political parties. Again, which means if a party has a preponderance in one area, they shouldn't be getting a lot more voters or a lot more people than another party which is dominant in another part of the country, but the population of that state could be lower. So it's done to ensure geographical parity between political parties, and it's also done to follow the principle of one vote and one value. How is this process actually carried out? Now, this process is governed under Article 82 and the Parliament enacts a delimitation act after every census. Now, once the act is in force, the union government sets up something known as a delimitation commission. Now, delimitation still now, we also need to understand how many of them have taken place. Now, the first delimitation exercise was carried out in 1950 and 1951, which is right before the first elections took place in India. The Delimitation Commission Act was enacted in 1952. The delimitation commissions were set up in 1952, in 1963, in 1973 and in 2002. There was, however, no delimitation after the 1981 and 1991 censuses. Now, one caveat here is that in 2009, some sort of an exercise took place where 499 out of 543 constituencies were newly delimited. This was only in 8 states in the country. Now, what is the situation now as far as delimitation is concerned? Now, as per the Delimitation Act of 2002, seats can't be increased till 2026. Now, this was done on the ground that uniform population growth will be achieved by 2026. Now, the constitution also has capped the Lok Sabha seats to a maximum of 550. Now, all of this needs to be understood in greater detail. Now, why are these seats freezed? Why do we have the seats capped? All of this. Why is this happening? What is this delimitation freeze all about? Now, in 1951, let's go back into history now. In 1951, the Lok Sabha had just 489 seats like we discussed. Now, this was done based on the principle of proportional representation. Now, what does that mean? This means that every state will be allowed the number of seats in the Lok Sabha in such a manner that the ratio between the number of seats and the population of the state is same for all the states so far as practicable. That was the principle which was being followed. Now, the states that focus on population control measures ran the risk of being underrepresented in the parliament. Now, remember, there are some states which are able to flatten their population curve and some which are not. Now, those which were able to do it said that they were at a disadvantage. Now, during the emergency, the 42nd constitutional amendment, added a proviso. Now, as per this proviso, the 1971 census would be taken as the reference point till figures for a census post 2000 is published. Now, the population figures of 1971 census, remember this is 60 years ago, were frozen, and 1971 had registered an electorate of 27.4 crore. Now, keeping in mind the family planning programs in different parts of the country, delimitations were frozen till 2026. However, a delimitation exercise was conducted, remember, between 2002 and 2008 on the basis of the 2001 census. Now, in this particular exercise, certain readjustments took place, but the number of seats could not increase due to the freeze which was put in place. Now, another sort of problem exists. This is the north-south divide. Now, remember, there are states in the south which are able to flatten their curve, effectively implement family planning programs, and their population was declining. In the north, however, the situation was not the same. The population continued to increase in the North Indian states. Now, what is the problem here? Now, by 2031, remember, the reference population figures of 1971, which we discussed, will be almost 60 years old. Now, according to the 2001 census, UP should have 7 more seats because the population there is growing. Now, according to the 2001 census, Tamil Nadu should have 7 fewer seats. So, there is a lack of parity because of these reversed sort of trends in population in the northern states vis-a-vis the southern states. Now, as per the 2011 census, Bihar, MP, Rajasthan and UP should collectively get 22 more seats. But as per the same census of 2011, the southern states would have to lose out on 17 seats because they have been able to effectively flatten the curve as far as population is concerned. So, that is another parity that must be kept in mind when we are increasing or decreasing, rather changing and readjusting the constituencies in the country. Now, having explained all of this, having talked about representation, how representation ratio has changed over the years, how India has the highest representation of 15 lakh:1 in the world, and having compared it to democracies around the country, we also need to understand that there is some sort of underlying movement taking place, and policy makers are on their way to thinking about increasing the number of seats. Now, why am I talking about that? How do I know that? I mean, look at the new parliament building. Now, if you look at the new parliament building, the current Lok Sabha strength is just 543, but the new parliament capacity is of 888. The current Rajya Sabha strength is 245, but the new parliament capacity is that of 552. This was a video talking about why we need more MPs in the Lok Sabha, how the Lok Sabha requires a revamp and upgrade. Thank you for watching.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.